Kosha wala eswelwa Kateka twa mitotela Totela Lusa ena twa muwela Whoa, 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 whoa Mwewe tu mame Mame Chagwa lungue Lungue Chagwa maume ni chagwa Mwewe tu mame di lungu Zambia ya wamba mame di lungu Zambia ya chinga Wele 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 Chagwa wele 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 Chagwa Waifu no kulikita masanga la toni webu Uopposition wando mwevo kanita mkwete kwefe ya kutalika Mwabashani mwebu Iyashiri ya development iteli ya kufa chabe Kuli wena na menso webo konse kuwalolesha ni development yeka webo in all sectors of society Ukwa mulo kushako neri umo Findo mfwaya, findo mwingala bila mwebo Tujoine ni chabe Chagwa lungue Chagwa maume ni chagwa Mwewe tu maume ni lungu Zambia ya wamba maume ni lungu Zambia ya chinga Wele wele kwa wele kwa Chagwa wele kwa wele kwa
Good evening, Zambia, and welcome yet again to the Patriotic Front Interactive Forum. Now, the Patriotic Front Interactive Forum is the premium dialogue platform of the Patriotic Front designed to host party functionaries to discussions of national importance. Our guest this evening is the immediate past Minister of Home Affairs of the Republic of Zambia. He is the candidate for the Patriotic Front for the Shiwangandu parliamentary seat. Additionally, he is a member of the Patriotic Front Central Committee, which is the highest decision-making organ of the party. I'm talking about Honorable Stephen Kampyongo. Honorable, you are welcome to the PF Interactive Forum.
Thank you so much, Nakiwe, and it's a pleasure for me to come and feature on this very important platform. And kudos to the Secretary, to the President, the Secretary General, yes, and the Patriotic Front leadership for this innovation.
We are very, very happy indeed to have you this evening. Now, you are a long-standing member of the Patriotic Front, and so what are your reflections of the party, you know, from the time it was in opposition and now that it has served about 10 years in government?
Thank you so much, Nakiwe, and like you have said, long-serving member, proudly so. We got to join our founding father, President Michael Chifasata, may so rest in peace, who founded the Patriotic Front. It was unfashionable during the time for youths to go into the opposition political party then, and obviously for various reasons. Youths sometimes find it easier to jump into politics the easier way, and mostly when the party is ruling. But remember that President Michael Chifasata was coming from the UNIP, and he was part of those that participated in the independence struggle under Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. My parents, my father was a public servant during the time of independence liberation, teacher in the rural area within the same chiefdom as Dr. Kaunda, you know, Chief Unkula of Chinsali district. So as teachers, they were inspired to join Dr. Kaunda, Simon Wansakapwepwe, Mr. Marmasokoni, Mr. Kapasa Makasa in Chinsali then. Those that were, you know, pioneers of the liberation movement, which later became Cha-Cha-Cha movement. So I'm just giving that slight background just to give you the history that we grew up mentored that way under the UNIP government. And, you know, my parents, both, my father, his two young brothers, the Shinga brothers as they were called, later on became very active in politics. And to a point of one of them becoming a member of parliament for Chinsali Central. So it's that background that actually was made it easier for President Sata to actually identify me when the time came, and because he was closer to my parents under the UNIP government. And that's why for that, you know, my last uncle to die to run that in our tradition was my father's immediate young brother, Mr. Michael Shinga, who had served in Katete for a long time as regional secretary, was the last to die. And actually, he was the one that dragged me and said, look, one of you should pick it up from us to get into politics. And the only person that you can work with is this gentleman who we know, because we were with him in the UNIP government, and he means well for this country. And having discussed with him, we feel he can change a lot of things. Because I'll tell you the truth that in 1990, when there was that referral to change government, our parents who were UNIP were very strong, and you wouldn't even dare, you know, challenge them to say you're going to the plural politics. So I never had a chance to even carry a card member of the movement for multi-party democracy, because some of the beliefs we grew up with and the UNIP were so entrenched, national values and just respecting those that fought for independence. And that's why it was a very interesting, emotional event for me to be part of the people that received Dr. Kaunda's body back in Chinsali to mourn him. And I went to the school named after Dr. Kaunda, which is just across in Rubwa. So it wasn't difficult for me to jump into the Patriotic Front. And President Sata, who had known my parents, gave me an assignment to go and help in growing the party in Shwangando. There was a very vibrant lady that time who he personally called and told that I'm going to send you a young man who I've assigned, because I was not sure that, of course, I thought I needed to grow up a little bit. And, you know, the time I had to make a decision, my wife was just going for a master's degree, and we had a 2-year-old son.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting bargain I had to do. But why join the PF? Of course, the things that President Sata stood for. We had at a time when infrastructure had gone down, and things were just more or less like the infrastructure that was left under UNIP was the infrastructure that we ran with. Yeah. You remember that we had national assets that were then privatized, and the suffering of the people. But, you know, I think the MMD probably meant well, maybe the speed at which they moved in terms of implementing certain programs, such as privatization. And obviously, just disregarding what was built over 27 years, to some extent, costed them the unpopularity that they came to experience later on. So when King Cobra was saying, I've seen it all, I've been part of UNIP, I've been part of MMD, I think I can drive this nation to a different level, having worked so much. And so it was appealing. And he said, some of you young ones need to join me. Me, I'm actually, in my afternoons, I want to mentor you on how you should manage public affairs. So it was very interesting. So we joined those, you remember we had one MP from the initial stages. Then 2006, we had 40. And then, of course, there was a challenge during the constitution making process, I think, and MMD then. There was a split out of the 40. We remained with 20 that were loyal to the party. And it's at that point when President Sata said, now you need to go and mobilize the party, because the person who had been elected as MP for Shwangandu, my elder brother, Major Celestino Chivamba, retired, and may so rest in peace, had rebelled against the party. And so there was need to go and make sure that we protected the structures of the party and make it ready, make the structures ready for 2011. So in a nutshell, it was the agenda that President Sata was sharing with all of us. And he was saying he needed everybody to contribute in things that, you know, were penning. And for me, the last one was when I went to pick up the same uncle I was talking about. I was coming from Nakonde to pick up a vehicle, and I found him sick, seriously sick. I had to take him to a little clinic where there was literally nothing. I had to come back to Lusaka, then traveled back to go and pick him to take him to Chilonga. Took him to Chilonga, and of course, that was the only hospital in that area where everybody was running to. But they had also limitations. Unfortunately, we lost him. And we had to take the body back to Kasangala, where I was living. And before that, when I went to pick him, we were saying, look, this is what we have. You know, we need to do something. We need to have facilities, health facilities that we can run to, even us as villagers. You know, I'm retired. We can't all be in urban areas where the facilities are. And so, motivated by that, I jumped on board. And what came to pass was that I was adopted to stand in 2011. We were the opposition trying to unseat MMD. I was up against the same elder brother I referred to, Major Celestino Chivamba, who stood on MMD then. And there were other, I think, 7 contestants. In PF, I think people that had wanted to contest were about 20 or plus. When I was settled for. So it was a resounding victory. I thumped all my contenders hands down, including the veteran, was all the resources. You know, he had all the T-shirts and all the vehicles. Yeah, so I went there as an underdog, but he knew that because of the family I was coming from, I was a force to reckon with. And it came to pass because I think the defeat I gave him was something else. I think I got, I think, more than 10,000 votes. Against him was closer to me. We had about 1,300 votes. And the rest shared the little that remained. Then I became member of parliament. I was very happy.
Yeah.
Then we had to go back to the old man because he had indicated that when we after forming government, we were going to split Northern Province into 2 provinces. Already before as we were going to elections, we had the structures of the party for the new province. So we had to fight to make sure that that was realized. And we thank him that he honored his word, and he promised that we were going to do something to honor the freedom fighters, Dr. Kaunda and his colleagues that I mentioned earlier on, by making Mchinga a province and making Chinsali, where these gallant men and women, you know, Mama Kankasa, the late dear lady, and Julia Chikamoneka and others also came from there.
Wow.
So he had promised that we were going to honor this by making Chinsali a provincial headquarters of the new province. And you, if you work hard, we shall make sure that the place called Dishua, where Dr. Kaunda and his colleagues used to go, we had the British settler there called Sir Stuart Go-Brown, who was helping these people by hiding them from his fellow whites at a time of need. So that's where, he had promised to honor that place also by declaring Shwangandu as a district. So for me, I feel a sense of satisfaction in the short period of actively being in politics. So I was a member of parliament for 1 year, backbench, and he was testing us that, look, what do you choose, a flag, or you still want to go by the provincial headquarters of Chinsali? We said, sir, we are already members of parliament. And for me, I would rather get the provincial headquarters to honor those gallant men and women who fought for us to be what we are today. And so I didn't mind being a backbencher even for 5 years. But there it was, after 1 year, he gave us the provincial headquarters and everything. He was to appoint me Deputy Minister, Home Affairs, in 2012, where I served for 3 years under the current head of state and Dr. Simbiakula. I was then moved from there to go and serve the first ever female vice president as deputy minister after the by-election that took place. And I combined both as I took over from the current head of state as deputy chief whip at Parliament, which I served up to the time I was also elevated to become minister of local government. And politically,
you've got a great history,
Yeah,
Honorable,
well,
and it's amazing. And it's something that we want to sit and listen to the whole day. But we're in the campaign period now, and you're coming from Chinga province, Shwangandu constituency. Given the way the COVID-19 has prevented the ordinary way of doing campaigns, has hampered, the traditional way we know of how campaigns should be conducted. How are you people in Mchinga and, especially in Shwangandu constituency, conducting your campaigns to sensitize people on why they should vote for you?
thank you so much, Nike. Certainly, it's an extraordinary time. It's a difficult time, of course. I lost my older sister, our firstborn, just a few weeks ago. Who succumbed to COVID, and I too was a victim. I was a patient. I recovered patient. In January when I was touring my constituency, I got infected with the virus. I was to come back. Of course, I thank the doctors at our new general hospital in Chinsali. And again, that's how much we feel satisfied to. If you go to Chinsai now, there's a beautiful general hospital. Wow. It's a marvel. And so that's where I went, and I was treated first before I was gotten back. So even when I'm sharing with the people, it's from the experience that I've gone through. And so what we are doing, even as we're engaging people, the first thing we are doing is to make sure that we share the masks with them, even as we are going through the villages. And villages are not like here in the urban areas. Villages are dotted around from one to another. And so door to door is not the door to door you do in town. So you have to traverse, the constituency from one place to the other. And you meet people in reasonably smaller groups and make sure that you get them to mask up whilst you're engaging them, so that if you have moved with a virus, you don't leave it with them. And either way, if you find it in a location, you don't pick it up. So the only other thing we need to do is also to sensitize them about vaccination. I got vaccinated myself, and so I would want to see as many people in rural areas vaccinated. And we need to take a front role in sensitizing them on the importance of COVID. But what is interesting and comforting for us is that people are able to see where we are coming from. The 10 years that we have been in power, they're able to compare and contrast. They're visibly able to see what is it that we have done in all the sectors be it agriculture, education, health, which is very important, you know, security, and so they're able to relate with the development. And so it's easy for us to say, oh, our president is running mate, and ourselves as parliamentary candidates. And I can tell you that certain victory is within sight. So we are in course we have, you know, one thing is that President Lungu has made us, you know, to respond to challenges in a dynamic way. We have suffered the worst form of challenges. I don't think any other political party on the political scene now could have survived the shocks that we suffered. The first one being the loss of our founding president mid the term. And the development programs we had started, had it been for this manifesto, could have been a challenge. Things would have been in disarray. But we were able to pass through that storm. It was the heaviest storm. We had a house divided against each other, itself, you know, when we lost the parent. But somehow, with God's, you know, guidance and blessings, we managed to usher in President Edgar Lungu. And the rest of the other challenges we have faced on the way, it has been easy to pass through them, be it droughts, you know, that were threatening food security, which also resulted in power deficit. You know, remember going to 2016 with, you know, us importing power at higher cost, which we had to supply to our people at a much lower cost. You know, and we had to keep the engines of the economy, the mines running. And so this COVID, yes, it's a new phenomenon, but because of this experience we have had, that's why people might not even see the negative, the impact this COVID has had on our economy and many other sectors, like many other countries globally.
Indeed. Now, Honorable, you are the immediate, you know, past Minister of Home Affairs of this country. And what are the achievements of your government, the Patriotic Front government, pertaining, you know, issues of security?
Thank you so much, Nakira. National security is in two components. We've got the public safety, which is like internal security of the state. Then we have got the defense forces, which now is the defense mechanism of the state against external intrusions. And this is where you find the Zambia Army, the Zambia Air Force, the Zambia National Service. Under the state security, public state security, that's where you have the police, you have the correctional service, former prisons, immigration, that regulates the inflow of people. Then you have the Drug Enforcement Commission. And so when you say Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, it means that the president oversees all these state institutions, including his special division that falls under his office, which also forms part of the internal security system. So you need to have a commander-in-chief who is inclusive, who takes care of all these state security institutions equitably by making them function, by ensuring that all of them are getting a fair share, so that you have got it, the balance. You have to strike a balance. Now, under President Sata, we started with reforms, because if you heard him on public rallies, he will even be mocking the police, starting from the shoes they were wearing. You hear them, Moneni Chombo ya Kwakapokora. Because he too had a police background. So he understood the challenges that the state institutions were going through, starting from accommodation, uniforms, and just the general welfare. Because public security is what makes a country functional. All these sectors, Nakiwe, be it economic sectors, social sectors, cannot thrive in the absence of security. The countries where security has broken down, that's why the countries they refer to as failed states. Because you can't govern without the country being anchored on safety. We pride ourselves as a country of peace and where people enjoy their fundamental human rights. It's because of this sector, the security sector. So the commander-in-chief, as President Sata started, we started working on something. I do recall as the deputy minister being assigned to tour the whole country to look at the infrastructure issues. Together, I think we split with Honorable Dr. Simbiakula, who is the ambassador now. And what we have found was something that even now, sometimes when I look back, having lived the dream to transform, to start doing something towards those challenges, I don't even believe sometimes. Because some of the housing units, I'm happy that you hosted my elder brother, Honorable Given Luvinda here, whose former constituency, you know, hosts these cantonments for the police. And he was always lamenting, be it in parliament, when he was in opposition, and even when he formed government. You imagine a household of a police officer with one house looking like an elephant. The demarcations of this little thing called a house have changes. You and I know that, you know, as we grow as a family, to make a family, you need to have home with privacy for parents and children as they're growing up. So even as, you know, of course, we are still, there's a lot of work to do. But we have demonstrated under the responsible commander-in-chief, starting from President Sata, and the current one, because him, we were together at Home Affairs. And I remember when President Sata was saying, the two of you, please do something. These people are the ones that protect your lives. And so that's how we started looking outside the box on what we could do, because those are not mini undertakings. They require resources, and they require one to think outside the box. So, as we speak now, you have seen officers at least looking confident. We have tried to reboost them, and it's not only the Zambia Police Service alone who we have equipped. We have provided housing units. We haven't finished the whole country, but officers must be confident that with us in government, under the same commander-in-chief, we shall make sure that we go beyond what we have already done, equipping them so that they undertake their duties effectively. It's the same prisons. We are reforming from prisons, we're saying correction of facilities, where we reform offenders so that they come out of those facilities as responsible citizens. Immigration. And these are, especially the correctional service, they were not even, no one would look at them. But now, we have reformed the institution, we have provided housing, we have provided uniforms, we have provided tools, motor vehicles, equipment for them to engage in farming, production. Immigration has been transformed. As you know, it's one of those institutions where we are supposed to make non-tax revenue. And as they regulate the flow of people, they also manage human resource that comes from outside through the issuance of various permits and managing those and preserving the jobs that Zambians must hold on to and against the foreign human resource. We have modernized their operations, automated them. Now they're generating net tax revenue much more than they used to. And you heard the president referring to them in one of the sessions. Drug enforcement, very important because of the mandates they have. We have made some reforms there, and we are doing very well. National development, national registration, passport, and citizenship, very key. That's a department that identified citizens from birth and ensure that those that want to be conferred with citizenship follow the right channel. So it forms part of the security, because if you don't manage that department well, you may end up with undesirable elements to even become eminent citizens. So there is a lot we can talk about internal security that has been done. You have seen the reforms of trying to secure cities through what we are calling Safe City project. Cameras that have been dotted around will see to it that you are able to move in the night. Even when we talk about 24-hour economy, these are the preparatory stages.
These cameras are not for spying on
No
people.
way, not at all. They are coming from people. I'll come to who can be reliable, Commander-in-Chief later. But this is meant to change the way we do things. And programs speak to each other. When you hear the economists talk about 24-hour economy, what are the enablers? So you cannot leave security, which is a very key enabler to implement that 24-hour economy, which generates a lot of jobs for the youths as they will be working in shifts. They need to be safe. Those of you who want to go and shop in the night want to be safe. So we want to make sure that the streets are safe like any other developing country. You have traveled to other cities, Nakiwe. You know that wherever you are, and even when you are watching these cable network news, when an incident happens, those clips they play, they don't come from nowhere to zero in and say, who attacked this individual at this corner? They'll play back to see where this person came from and zero in and quickly get the suspect. So that's what we're doing, not spying on anyone. That's why we're saying public safety. And all these malls that are mushrooming, popping up, they need to be safeguarded. You prepare for eventualities such as terrorism acts, which target these heavily populated facilities. So you have to make sure that you are able to monitor. And you know you want to go to a shopping mall knowing that you leave your car safe, come back after you have shopped with your merchandise, and everything is safe. That's what we're doing through that program. And control these public disturbances. And also monitor our law enforcement officers. Those that are in the habit of, corruption. For example, you are driving, you are a motorist with a defective car. Hey, you are the first one to put in your pocket. They tell you your car is not okay. Between the two of you, compromised, you are corrupting, and then someone is accepting a bribe. Those cameras will pick you up, and we deal with both of you. That's how we deal with corruption. You don't deal with corruption one-sided. So this is how dynamic we are approaching this matter. There's a lot that I can say about public safety. Defense. What have we done? You cannot prepare for war during the time of war. You can't. There's no country, which can pride itself as a safer country when they don't invest in their national security, which is also the defense. When we came in, our defense forces were not properly equipped. They participate in international engagements such as peacekeeping, which is an obligation under the United Nations. You cannot send ill-equipped personnel to go and undertake those missions. But believe you me, our men and women trained in this country, and I thank, when we lost Dr. Kaunda, you were able to listen to previous commanders, where we are coming from, the defense forces and one unitary command, the Chinkulis, who are still around, some of them, the Singogos, the Kaposhas, they would tell you where they're coming from. So we took over government when the defense forces were not properly equipped. So now we have invested in making sure that they've got proper equipment. We have established new cantonments. You saw the establishment of the Marine unit. In the past, our people were being harassed every day. Fishermen on the water bodies, Luapula province, Zambezi, and other major water bodies that we share with other countries. Our people were always losing lives, losing their property, until we made sure that we decided to capacitate the defense by establishing new marine units, very effective. And we have a new cantonment in Kawambwa, fully furnished and functional and equipped. Now our people are feeling safe. They are able to do their business and move well. We are establishing a new cantonment and in the Zambia Army here in Lusaka. We are yet to do something in Muchinga. And what we have in the manifesto here is to ensure that all the cantonments, the old ones, are worked on and refurbished. It's said that Rome was not built in one day. But what we are doing, and our men and women in uniform are able to compare where they're coming from and where we are today. At least they are able to have uniforms. And as you know, our defense forces are rated the most disciplined on the continent of Africa. And wherever they go to perform their duties, they make us feel proud. And they make their commander-in-chief feel proud. So the Air Force, when we took over, they could only count a handful of planes. We are training a high caliber of men and women in uniform to protect the airspace of this country. They never used to have the necessary equipment, drones, surveillance equipment that could make them effectively monitor who is coming in the airspace and who is doing what. You train them, their pride is earning flying hours. You go to the Air Force now, and you know when they do their national exhibition time, go there and see. And I want to commend the commanders, both Zambia Army and Zambia Air Force, because they've been able to show the public what they are meant, what they have in possession. And so now, at least we have acquired equipment for them to make sure that when they are trained, they are able to be active. They can defend their nation with pride. Zambia National Service, it has been a backup to the Zambia Army, part of defense. But it was identified to be one institution that can also contribute in production. So they have gone into farming, and equipment has been secured. They've got milling plants, which they'll be using to supplement the private sector in terms of food security. So this is where we are. And now it shocks me to see people challenging our current commander-in-chief, reliable commander-in-chief, trustworthy commander-in-chief, saying they would come and say, oh, these merchants, some of them were contesting. And I'll refer to them, because here I've got two manifestos. There's this one for our colleagues. And it will tell you that these are people who don't even know how government functions. Because anyone who is serious about wanting to govern this nation must prioritize security. Here, in this document, there's only one little paragraph talking about public order. And they're just talking about the Public Order Act. Can surely security be reduced to a Public Order Act? The national security? That's what they have here. And you can challenge them. So everything they say is from their heads. And that's why we can't be surprised that their president, who I don't think can make an effective commander-in-chief because it doesn't meet the character. He's even proposing to come and sell military hardware. Where? In this world, have you ever heard anyone, even where people have got opposition leaders, no one would be such pet to even think. But you know what they did? Because even thinks the way they were selling public assets, you would want to take that to the national security. It can't work. These are serious matters. Here we have got more than 2 pages talking about national security, reflecting on what we have achieved and what we intend to do in terms of going forward. And our men and women in uniform must be assured that they have got an inclusive commander-in-chief who hasn't left any security institution behind.
Amazing stuff indeed. Now, Zambia, in a very few days' time now, is going to a very, very crucial election, you know, and you coming from being the, the Minister of Home Affairs, what advice do you have for the people of Zambia, especially political players who are involving themselves in, violence, and this has a potential of making Zambian citizens not want to, go out of their homes to go and vote? It could potentially cause voter apathy. What advice do you have for the political players ahead of the elections?
My advice is this, that Zambia is not going into elections for the first time. We have had elections before. We have changed governments before. There was UNIP, MMD came, and PF came in. There was no loss of life. And speaking for Patriotic Front, the same way we participated in the 2011 elections coming from opposition without fighting anyone. And if you remember, the fights were more between the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy and the UPND. That's when we heard of the Mapatiza formula and many other crashes. So there's a part which is a common factor in these issues of violence. And we need to call leaders, frankly and sincerely, to condemn and to make their followers understand that you cannot get a vote from a person you are threatening. President Lungu has been very clear in terms of how he respects people's will. Is a rare breed in terms of leadership on the continent of Africa. And if you allow me, I will highlight on that as we conclude. And the reason why I think out of the people contesting, he stands tall in terms of how he looks at national affairs. He's been very clear. He has allowed his own members to go to jail. I was Minister of Home Affairs myself. We have had people wanting to use the name of the Patriotic Front being sent to jail. You will recall that even me serving as Minister of Home Affairs, I had my own brother arrested and made to account when he was implicated in the violent activities. So my advice is that let's engage our people, and with the messages that we have, we as Patriotic Front have got a lot to point at. Social safety nets, which people are appreciating both in villages and here. That's what we need to engage. We don't need anyone to come and beat my villagers and threaten them. No. So I am happy that the Inspector General of Police is going round to ensure that his men and women in various provinces are doing the right thing, because the responsibility they have on their shoulders is to make sure that the peace that we've enjoyed is not washed away. we were just burying Dr. Kaunda, and the messages of unity is what we were all discussing and listening to, because that's a foundation that Dr. Kaunda and his colleagues left, that of coexistence. So my advice to all the political players is that let's learn to coexist, embrace each other, and exchange ideas. You saw we almost had some disturbances in Shwangandu, and a number of people going to court. I've said, when I became MP in 2011, there was quiet in Shwangandu, nothing. 2016, that's when you saw a bit of people coming from outside. But I have said, even this time around, I called my colleagues from the UPND, and we discussed and committed ourselves and agreed that anyone who breaks the law must be allowed to face the full wrath of the law.
Now, as we wind up...
So we want everybody to replicate that.
Yeah.
But
as
it depends on the leaders, Nakiwe.
Okay.
If you are a presidential candidate, you are in a motorcade, and the members of your motorcade become criminals, destroy people's property, burn vehicles, you must be seen to be condemning that in sincerity. You don't go and justify any violence to say, no, I was defending myself. There's no violence that is justifiable in any way. Well, I don't get surprised. That's why it shocks me when I hear someone and I see a debate of a presidential aspirant saying, I've been arrested so many times. How can that be a CV? You are saying, me, I'm a lawbreaker. I break the law with impunity. That's why I get incarcerated. And you are asking people to trust you as commander-in-chief? How? You have seen these adverts. And those that are around those people, like the president for this party, whose manifesto is I was showing you on the table, must reflect. What are you telling society? That me, I'm a lawbreaker. We can only celebrate those who are fighting for independence of this continent.
We really have run out of time, but you know, we would like to get from you just in a very short space of time, in under a minute, why should the citizens of this country, you know, vote for the Patriotic Front and President Lungu again in this year's elections?
Like you, people of Zambia have got tested leadership. President Edgar Lungu knows the authority of the people, and he has demonstrated this. Very few in Africa would have done what he did. You remember when we lost President Sata, he remained as acting head of state with the instruments of power. Legally given. The only one who was going to get those instruments of power was the Sonian president. But you saw what transpired. He said, yes, I was given these instruments of power, but I wouldn't want to spill any blood. Because he was commander-in-chief. He would have held on to those instruments, and he was in charge, and he could have given any orders as acting commander-in-chief. But he said, I will let go, I will go to the people. And his followers followed him until his people, the Zambian people, gave him the mandate, which is currently enjoying. Such leaders on the continent of Africa are very few. You have seen other countries which have been, at war. It's because of ambition management. Failure to manage ambitions on wanting to just be in State House at all costs. There are very few, including those that have lost more than 6 times. I don't think they would have acted in a manner President Lungu acted. So he respects the people. And all these developmental programs that we're talking about is because it comes from inside himself to save the people of Zambia. And that's why all of us who are behind him are saying, let the people of Zambia trust him to take this country to another level. And he's the right candidate with the running mate he has chosen. It will be interesting, and people of Zambia will live to benefit from that pair of leadership. And all of us supporting them, it will just be something that people of Zambia will live to appreciate. Others I can't even talk about.
Thank you so much.
Because some of the presidential candidates, Nakiwe,
Thank you so much.
are supposed to be competing with us parliamentary candidates.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Honorable Kampyongo. Sadly, we have, done our time here. We've come to the end of the program, but we really want to thank you, for taking time off your busy schedule. You are in Shingwangandu, but took time to come and just articulate issues on why Zambia should vote for your party again. And to our viewers, thank you so much for having been with us the entire duration of the PF Interactive Forum. And until next week, when we bring to you yet another exciting guest, my name is Nakiwe Simpungwe, your host. Good evening.
Hey.
Alebuele la posori. Nilesa wasalire sori. Tapale kodunga chitavwe oso. Chambo chanoa, baba muwato wanoa. Nokuwamba na tubomba sofa. Tatua kaleke sori. Chambo chanoa, baba muwato wanoa. Nokuwamba na tubomba sofa. Tatua kaleke sori. Alebuele la pu, na puti na puti. Alebuele la pu, 2021. Alebuele la pu, alebuele la pu, alebuele la pu. Sometimes ila fwa ikawa baula. Weka feno tidionse kudandaula. Sometimes ila fwa ikawa tasha. Letu womba nolo watila tabalasha. Mona fechalo chese vochawama. Tola ukeri dine tola samwa. Wasa wiantanshu utaba mona. Valolela fedefwe wotuka pona. Wena vaishi wapyo kukondema. Tapari wabawino kama omena. Kati yuwe na nilesa fe wasala. Gani wena ngatwaba fe munsala. Sodini uyo Alebuele la posori. Uyo I stand as cleaner. I stand as Fukuta. The opposition akapanja. The opposition akapandula. Yabwenanda, we are good unto one. Yabwenanda, we are good unto one. Kanutataza inyanga, anungu anasebenzakale. Kanutataza inyanga, anungu anasebenzakale. Lo 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 lo. Lo 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 lo.
chakwe shaboka ne chakwenze bwe experience yetu competition ya chakwe wewe chakwa kitawebo chetukwani che vinge byo waona wile webo mubika shibobe wepo dirigeni ya siri ya promises bazili reality uli wena na menzone kupindi mukachabe wilole cha bwino wepo aikulu kulikita masanga la kodi tiye piye kwa wato peka wepo tiye nimbo
Lungu ni umongo, wote kwa kwata cha umongo. Lungu ni umongo, yeah. Lungu ni botale, yeah. Lungu ni botale. Duduna, yeah. Duduna na putu. Awele poima.
Uyo alebwele la posori
Uyo nilesa wasalire sori tapale kodunga chikabwe woso
Sambo chanoa baba mubwato bwanoa nokubamba na tubomba sofa tatwakaleke sori